Are you thinking about buying a townhouse here in Vancouver? I'm going over 8 costly mistakes that you want to avoid as a home buyer. I want to save you money. I want to save you time, frustration, and energy. So please stick around all the way to the end. All 8 mistakes, as well as some bonus tips that I'm going to be sharing at the end of the video. My name is Kyle Mark, your Vancouver Realtor. Not only do I have 7 years experience in the Vancouver market, I also have 11 years construction experience from concrete builds to wood frame builds. So I'm sharing a lot of my insider construction knowledge in this video as well, so that you can highlight and identify a perfect unit for you that's not only going to appreciate well, but it's going to serve you and your family over the coming years and not give you a bunch of headaches. Whether you're actively looking as a buyer or seller here in Vancouver, or just starting off the process, book a call with me. It's in the description below. I'm super easy to get a hold of, and I am here to help. You can also shoot me a text if you're wanting some more information. I want you to avoid these costly mistakes. Let's get into mistake number 1, and that's not understanding the different types of townhomes that you can purchase. There are 2 types of townhomes you can purchase. There's the standalone variety, or there's the one attached to a bigger strata plan, usually with condos on top. And location is a prime factor with these. In downtown Vancouver, you're going to find a lot of these townhomes that are built into these bigger strata plans into high-rise buildings. If you're looking for a standalone townhome, downtown may not be the location for you. And that's why it's critical for you to understand what you want to buy, because it may not exist in the location that you prefer. Also, building construction type. Standalone townhomes are primarily wood frame construction. You can find some in concrete, but they're quite highly desirable and they are very rare. Whereas obviously if you're buying into a high-rise complex, even if the townhome is on the first floor, it is going to be concrete, and there's a lot of positives for that. You have great soundproofing, you have great insulating properties. Obviously, if there was a natural disaster in Vancouver too, you have the rigidity and fire suppression components of it too, but it does come with a cost. The price per square foot for purchasing it will be higher than a wood frame, and your maintenance fee is also going to be higher because these bigger strata plans have a lot more items to maintain. You're maintaining the entire building, even the condo building. You're maintaining this huge footprint, and if there's a lot of amenities like concierge, pool, sauna, gym, those are going to come back to you on a unit entitlement basis for you to upkeep. Not to mention, if you're buying into a massive building footprint, you can have upwards of 8 parking levels, and that is something that they need to budget for future envelope issues. So this is something to keep in mind if you have budget concerns. So I have the TD mortgage calculator in front of me, and to show you exactly how a strata fee can affect your overall purchasing power, if you have a difference of $611 a month, that can cost you $100,000 at lending. So a standalone townhome is around $400. You buy into a bigger concrete townhome, you buy into a bigger strata plan in a concrete townhome downtown, let's say, and it's just over $1,000 a month. That $611 a month difference will cost you $100,000 of lending. So is that really worth it to you in the long run? It depends how much you value amenities. It depends how much you value a concrete building, but that is some food for thought. Mistake number 2 is not understanding that a ground level unit with its own street address is considered a townhome by mortgage lenders. So what do I mean by this? If you're buying into a complex, but you have your own address such as 1234 Main Street, because you have that designation, you are automatically considered a townhouse. So why does that matter to you? Depending on your lender, and I know that the Bank of Montreal as well as some other lenders have some very strange lending requirements that a lot of the other big banks don't have, you may be having lending problems. So it's really important to communicate with your realtor if your lender has any issues when it comes to townhouse purchases. The Bank of Montreal, for example, has a minimum requirement of 850 square feet for a townhouse. So if you're purchasing a separate address unit that's under that 850 square foot mark, the underwriters need more time, and it's up to manager approval for you to get your financing in check. So if you have a typical 7 to 10 day subject period and you put in your documentation, you finish your due diligence, and you're starting your financing, it could blow up a deal because the Bank of Montreal or some other lenders may need more time to qualify you for that mortgage. It doesn't matter how much square footage or how many bedrooms the unit has, it will be considered a townhome if you have your own address. I have purchased clients into bachelor units that are less than 500 square feet that have their own address, and they will be categorized as a townhouse. So it's really important for you to understand that when you and your realtor are making offers. There are some lenders that won't even lend money out to units that are less than 500 square feet. So there are several items here that you need to understand if you're looking at some of these smaller townhomes that have their own address. And for me, when I am working with buyers, it's so important for me to have a relationship with their lender so that none of these issues have to present during the time of offer writing. These are all items that should be discussed ahead of time so that we don't have to have any frustrations or have anything that could compromise a deal on a unit if you are purchasing something with their own address or anything else of that matter. Mistake number 3 on the list is not understanding your parking options. Not all parking is created equally, and not only can it inconvenience you when you move into your unit if you haven't done your due diligence, it can affect your resale value down the road. What do I mean by this? If you're buying into one of these larger strata plans in a big development, you need to understand and do your due diligence. What kind of parking do you have? Do you have a small car spot? Is there infrastructure that is impeding parking, such as sprinkler pipes, an HVAC unit? Where is it located? Is it located on P5? Is it located on P1? Is it by an elevator lobby? If you have multiple stalls, are they side by side? Are they mismatched all over the place? All of these things, like I said, will inconvenience you with your groceries, with dropping off the kids, picking up the kids, and also resale value. These are big things that people want. When people are focusing in and buying a unit, they want stalls that are side by side, they want full-size parking, and ideally they want to be near the top of the parkade. I'm selling a unit right now in downtown Vancouver, and it's located on the bottom on P8, and that can definitely be an issue, and I've heard that feedback from buyers. Just because you're buying a townhouse doesn't mean you're going to get that garage, and as we just discussed, if you're buying into a bigger complex, you're going to have a similar stall more than likely as the condo owners. In some cases, if it is a little bit higher quality of a build, and if you're lucky, the townhouse will actually have a dedicated garage. They'll have a full drawn door where you can get both your cars in and storage. That is a massive selling feature, but those are a rare commodity and you are going to be paying a higher price for that. On the standalone side of things, depending on the location you're buying, you can get townhomes with a single detached under or a double, but with Vancouver, with land being a premium, a lot of townhouse complexes, even on the standalone size, will have a small parkade for you to have a stall, and in some cases, some townhomes don't have any parking at all. And if that's the case, you have to make a decision if that is worth it for you. Is it worth the inconvenience of not having security, having to go out in the rain, having to scrape your windshield wiper? And just because you're buying a 2-bed or a 3-bed townhome, you may not get 2 or 3 parking stalls, you may just have one. So understanding the parking requirements and really doing a full investigation is very important when purchasing not only a townhome but a condo as well. Mistake number 4 on the list is ignoring noise levels and soundproofing. Especially if you're buying into a wood frame townhome, it is really important for you to understand the type of building construction. Are the walls 2x4? Are they 2x6? If it's higher end, maybe you have some 2x8 walls on the exterior as well. The wider the dimension of lumber, the more soundproofing you're going to have. It's also really important to understand where in the building you are located for soundproofing. If you're on a middle floor in the middle of the building, you're going to have neighbors to the top, to the bottom, and to the side. So it's going to be really important for you to understand how that may affect your family and the soundproofing of those units. Understanding the insulation that was used, the dimensional lumber, the type of windows, are they double paned, are they triple paned, especially if you may be living on a busy street in a downtown complex as well. All of these items and those questions must be asked for your peace of mind. The best type of insulation is mineral wool. It's a very dense, usually green type of material. Bad insulation is usually pink. It's a lot more fluffy. So understanding the type of insulation can help you with some of your questions about soundproofing. If you're buying a pre-sale project, they will for sure know the type of materials. If you're buying a resale, and especially on the age of the home, it may be very hard for you to understand what that is, but ask those questions nonetheless. Other things that can affect soundproofing is if your home has radiant in-floor heating that uses hot water to heat the home through the floors. And the reason being is that they will leave at a minimum 1.5 inches when they frame out those units with a soft set concrete, because they need to pour concrete all around the plumbing pipe so they can lay their subfloor. So obviously if you all of a sudden now have 1.5 inches of quickcrete concrete on each floor, that's going to help with some of the sound barrier as well. It's not going to take it away completely, but it's also going to be a lot better than just having 5/8 or 3/4 inch plywood with your subfloor. So Understanding the building components of a home is going to help you with some of those soundproofing questions as well. Mistake number 5 is not understanding that you're part of a strata when you're buying a townhome. Anywhere there are 2 strata lots joined together, you are considered a strata. So whether you're a standalone or part of a bigger project, you are lumped in with the condo units, the townhouse units, or your townhouse neighbors in those standalone complexes. So you will still have to adhere to a strata council, a property management company, and all the strata rules as well. As a part of the strata, you own a portion of the land of the footprint that you reside on. But with that footprint, you have to maintain it, fix it, and that's where your strata fees go towards. So it's important to understand that you need to adhere to the rules, the bylaws, and really doing your due diligence. If you have dogs or cats, you want to make sure you're buying into a strata that allows that. So doing your due diligence is so important. When I have buyers and we are running through upwards of hundreds of pages of strata docs, I use artificial intelligence software to help with our due diligence so that we don't miss any of these items. You also have to understand the financials of the building, the budgets, the contingency reserve fund. All these components make up your decision making. You may have a townhouse that you absolutely love, but if there's problems with the minutes and the strata is not proactive and more reactive, I have some more videos on what that means exactly, but you need to run from those buildings, and that's why it's important to have a seasoned realtor to be able to help you walk through all of these things. If you are having some issues going through this process or feeling overwhelmed, book that strategy call with me. It's in the description below, and I can help you out with any questions that you may have. When you are living in a strata, you are living in community. So you want to make sure you're respectful to your neighbors, because stratas can issue fines, and you do have to live in the confines of those rules and regulations as well. You aren't buying a single family home. Even if you have a single detached townhome in a complex, you still have to adhere to these strata rules. Mistake number 6 is focusing too much on square footage. When you're buying a townhouse, and especially on the type of townhome you are purchasing, square footage really doesn't make that much of a difference. They have townhomes that can sometimes be upwards of 4 stories, and if you divide a buildable over 4 stories, you can have a lot of unusable space. You can have a lot of square footage built into the stairwells, into small hallways. Also, if you are looking at units that are 3 or 4 levels, and if you're a middle unit, it's really important to understand, can you even get your king size bed or certain furniture items in these small confined stairwells? I've worked on construction on a lot of these. I even know just getting my building materials up and in the stairs before drywall is on can be very, very hard. When you start to drywall and you put all these things together, it can make moving certain pieces of furniture impossible. So these are some things that you need to understand. If you have a unit that's based over 2 floors, or you have a single floor unit like we talked about at the beginning of the video with your own address, and it may just be 1 floor, you're going to have a lot more usable square footage, and it's going to feel more like a home. It's going to feel a lot more cozy, and you're going to have a lot more usable square footage, which is going to help for resale. Keep in mind, if you're older, if you're downsizing from a single family home into a townhome, you don't want to have a townhouse with a ton of stairs, especially if they have multiple levels. Sometimes the pitch on those stairs are very, very steep. It's very easy for you to slip. Not only humans, but your pets as well. Dogs can have problems with some of these steep pitches, and it can lead to accidents as well. My in-laws had a dog that slipped down the stairs multiple times. I have a dog as well, and he can sometimes have trouble on the pitch. So that's something to keep in mind for your pet safety as well. My advice is always looking at the floor plan over square footage, understanding where all the entryways are, understanding how many hallways, how many stairwells there are. You want to really maximize the space. Just because you have a 1,300 square foot unit doesn't mean you have 1,300 square feet of livable space, and that can affect your resale value in the future as well. Mistake number 7 on the list is not considering resale value. Right off the top, I always encourage my buyers to live in a home for a minimum of 5 years. Unless you're a professional flipper or in construction, you can put yourself in a really bad position if all of a sudden you want to pull shoot a couple years into your property purchase. You're paying property transfer tax. If you bought it in pre-sale and you finished on that, you're paying 5% GST. So there can be some huge financial issues if you sell within that time frame. The townhouse and the condo markets have stayed pretty flat in Vancouver for the last 4 or 5 years. So you want to make sure you get some time to make sure you get some equity into your property so you're making money when you exit it. Other things to consider, and we just touched on it on point number 6, is floor plan. Understanding an efficient floor plan is really, really crucial for your resale value. Does your unit have a storage locker? Does your unit have proper parking options? All these items come together to paint a picture for a buyer to help retain your asset and to make sure that you're going to appreciate and sell at a profit when the time comes. Factors like quality of construction obviously play a massive role when it comes to resale. You want to be able to have a nice unit that you can present to a future buyer. If you've done updates over the years, make sure that you keep all those receipts and have a list so that when it comes time for me to sell your property, I can put together an amazing package for buyers to show not only what the developer did, but the add-ons that you did to increase the value of your property. Something that I also want you to be aware of is with a townhome, the difference between a 2 and 3 bedroom townhome as well. You want to give yourself more options. If you can afford a 3-bedroom unit, I would go for that all day, because if you go for a smaller 2-bedroom unit, you are really restricting who can buy it. You're really restricting families. If they have multiple kids, they're not going to be able to squeeze into a 2-bedroom unit. Usually 2-bedroom units are for people that need a little bit more condo space, but they can't jump to that 3-bedroom mark or something a little bit larger, so they get into that 2-bedroom space. But I feel for appreciation, the more bedrooms the better, and I would definitely strive for a 3-bedroom unit over a 2-bedroom unit. Finally, mistake number 8, and that's not considering a duplex instead of a townhouse. And the reason for this is sometimes the price point isn't vastly different between a townhome and a duplex. The difference is when you're buying into a duplex, and that's where I currently live in, you own a much larger portion of the land that the property is constructed on. And at the end of the day, land is king. When you're buying into a townhouse complex, you're getting such a small area of the footprint. Whereas if you're buying a duplex, depending on the size of the lot, you get half of that lot size allocated to you. So for resale value, or if a developer wants to buy it from you at the end of the day to build a multiplex in the future, you're going to be able to have a lot more value tied to your property. With a duplex, you're sharing it with one other homeowner. So there's just 2 property owners. So you have a lot more privacy, a lot less regulations. They don't have a strata council. The 2 property owners work together in terms of how are they going to repair units. I always advise going to a lawyer to draft up some sort of paperwork to make sure they know the roles and responsibilities, but there's a lot less restrictions when you're living in a duplex itself. When it comes to strata fees, there isn't any. Depending on the agreement between the owners, a maintenance fee is not prescribed for a duplex, but it is good foresight to put some money aside, because repairs will have to be made at some point in the future, but on an ongoing monthly basis, there usually isn't a monthly fee. So that is something that you can save on the front end and put towards your purchase price. With half duplexes as well, you have a lot more flexibility, and that's exactly why I purchased into one right now. We have a single family garage that's underneath our home here in Vancouver, and we have an extremely large backyard. I have 2 young kids. I have a dog. It's all fenced. I can just let the dog out the front yard. The kids can go out there and play in the back. So you have a lot more outdoor space as well. Townhomes, depending where you buy, if you're ground level, you may have a bigger concrete pad, but we have a lot of grass. You can have a bigger backyard, and with half duplexes, you can have a suite in it. Right beside my office right here, we have an income producing suite that helps with our mortgage, and that can offset a lot of the cost and could be even cheaper than a townhome if you factor in that you can get a mortgage helper with a half duplex. You've made it all the way to the end, and as you can see, there are a lot of items that need your specific and full attention when purchasing a townhouse. And perhaps after this video, maybe a townhouse isn't the right fit for you. Maybe it's that half duplex. And if it is, shoot me a text or book that strategy call with me in the description. I can help send you some listings. But there are so many things to consider. And my bonus tips for you here at the end is just making sure that you're pairing yourself with an experienced agent that has been through this, who has the systems and procedures in place to be able to do all this due diligence for you, to answer the questions that you may have, and to find out any one of these potential issues that could harm your property purchase. Understanding factors like layout is so important. Building materials, spec sheets, air conditioning is a huge one, especially moving forward with our heat wave. I always recommend looking for units with air conditioning. If they don't have AC, my pro tip is looking into those strata documents and seeing if they have passed in the bylaws an addition where they will allow heat pumps with the split system, because you can now install ventless air conditioning units if you have the space and if your strata has the power to do so. So that's my one pro tip: air conditioning and looking into the strata bylaws to see if you can add that split system. But if you have any additional questions, get in touch with me, shoot me a text, and I will be able to help answer any questions that you may have. Until the next video, thank you so much for your support. See you later.